A few years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine shortly before Ash Wednesday, and we were talking about our Lenten observances. And she was telling me she was like, well, I think I need to lose a few pounds, so I think I'm going to go on a diet for Lent. And we ended up having this conversation and actually her best friend was involved with this too, it's that even though it's nice to want to do something to help your body out, that's really not what the point of the Lenten observances are. But everything we do during the season of Lent should bring our heart and mind closer to Christ. So it shouldn't just be about me and improving myself, but it should be about bringing us closer to God. And this is where we have in today's first reading from the prophet Joel this beautiful phrase about rend your hearts, not your garments. Our Lenten penances aren't just things that we do, but they really conform our hearts and minds to God. Because as we know, we're all sinners. We're all born with original sin, and we all have those weak areas of weakness that we need to work through in order to help to purify ourselves and make ourselves more holy. And during Lent it's 40 days, and this is a very important number because the Israelites spent 40 years in the wilderness until they reached the Promised Land. Jesus spent 40 days in the desert being tempted by the devil before he entered in public ministry. And so too, we embark on our 40 days of the season of Lent to prepare to journey with Christ through his passion and death that ultimately leads to his resurrection. This Lent that we go through is preparing ourselves to purify ourselves to meet Christ at Easter. And more broadly, it's for us to purify ourselves so that when we die and we're able to see Christ face to face, we can be welcomed into the kingdom of heaven. One of the hallmarks of the Ash Wednesday liturgy is that we're all marked with ashes, with the phrase, remember that thou art dust, and to dust thou shalt return. And of course, in the book of Genesis, we see that Adam, the first man, was made from the dust of the earth. And as we know, when we die, we'll be returned to the earth as dust. So we started as dust, and we're returning to dust. And that reminds us that what happens in this life is not what matters, and what matters is what happens in the life to come. So that's where, as we undergo our Lenten observances, let us think of things that really help us to root out those areas of weakness that take us away from Christ. And we might want to think about, maybe I suffer from pride. Well, I want to do things that intentionally put other people above myself and put myself in ways to humble myself. If I struggle with gluttony, well, then maybe I want to give up snacking between meals. If I use technology way too much and for bad things, maybe I want to do a technology fast this Lent. But all of these things should help to purify us, to help weed out those weaknesses that we have, so that we can journey to meet closer to meet God in the kingdom of heaven. And of course, the church gives us these three traditional observances: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And if you think about it, they're all connected. Because when we fast, when we deny ourselves of things, that's to help purify ourselves, which unites us with Christ in prayer. And of course, if we're fasting, if we're giving up things for ourselves, that should lead us to want to help our neighbor. If I realize that I waste a lot of money by going out to eat, well, then maybe I want to give money to a charitable organization that feeds the poor for people who cannot eat. And this is where it all works together. And this should lead us to a more holistic Lent. So this Lent, let us not do superficial things that just sort of are just nice things to do, like go on a diet. But let us do those things that actually bring us closer to Christ. Let's do those things that really hurt, that kind of make us a little vulnerable. And in today's gospel passage, we see, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. We don't need to boast about these grandiose penances that we're doing, because if we're doing them right, they should be things that hit us in vulnerable spots, things that really hit us where they hurt, and really drive out those areas of weakness so that we can become more pure and more Christ-like. So today, as we continue our Ash Wednesday celebration, let us embark on a formative 40 days that really helps us to prepare for meeting Christ in the life to come. And may we spend these 40 days, as Jesus did in the desert, to purify ourselves, to avoid those temptations, so that we can be prepared to meet Christ at Easter and have that joyful celebration of the resurrected Christ. Dear brothers and sisters, let us humbly ask God our Father that he be pleased to bless with the abundance of his grace these ashes, which we will put on our heads and